And just like that, we are back at the 240. Welcome back to the channel. The main thing today that I want to do is patch part of this bumper. Yesterday I threw on a new kit. The last video you guys got to watch, you kind of saw the whole process of me getting it here, mounting it up and trying to get it fitted. Bodywork done to it before my buddy Jake Reinhardt paints it. That dude seems to be a wizard with paint, so I'm really excited. He painted a Crown Vic, and I'll try and find a pic of it right here, and it's super cool. So I got excited. I did too much. I cut too much. It happens a lot with fiberglass. The beauty of fiberglass is that it's just really annoying, itchy, sticky Legos. So what I'm gonna do today is basically put this piece back in because I don't really like this negative space. I need a decent amount of space here for the bash bar to be jacked up on, but this space doesn't need to be as big. You know what? Screw it. We need content before the thing gets painted, so all right, we're gonna do it. All right, so I'll cut these zip ties off and yank this bumper off. For the most part, this cut is really clean. I just did it with like ironically, a Dremel cutting wheel. I brought all my fiberglass working stuff over here. I'm not gonna try and make it perfect, just enough that that flat part stays there. So really the more important part is building up a layer of fiberglass behind that, so that way it's flat enough that I'm just gonna do like a body filler Bondo and have the resin go on top of that so it's smooth. All right, so some shitty fiberglass mat, fiberglass resin, some duct tape to hold it into place, the body filler that we're gonna be doing on the top layer of it, some black because it's just primered black. Then I have a really high grit going or really low grit, I should say, going all the way up to like a 600 on that Bondo. So here's some hardening compounds for it because you've got to mix these in to it to make that resin start to harden up. And then I always like to use disposable stuff because this stuff's impossible to get clean. All right, so I duct taped this side so it wouldn't bleed through, or it would only, bleed through X amount. So there's quite the divide there because when you use a Dremel sanding wheel, it's essentially just grinding it out, not really cutting. So it's completely creating a negative space there from the fiberglass. But I'm not a pro at this, so we're gonna try our best. All right, sorry for such a shit angle. I don't have any filmer today, chance. So I cut a bunch of chunks of fiberglass mat to somewhat similar shape of what we'll need. Now we're gonna be putting the resin in, and you'll probably put, I don't know, probably like 3 or 4 ounces of this. Reduce, reuse, recycle, y'all. Here's my Starbucks cup from earlier, and we'll probably do about, I think, 10 drops of the hardener inside of this. So better read just to be sure. Okay, so yeah, 1 ounce is 10 drops of hardener. So we'll probably do like 3 ounces, so we'll do like 20 to 30 drops. It's probably a little bit of overkill, but who cares? So then we're gonna do a good amount of mixing of this. And you'll see lower quality resins aren't gonna be as clear necessarily, but since this isn't gonna be seen, we're not super worried about that. So I'm gonna pour a thin layer of this onto the fiberglass that's already existent and then start laying these one by one over it. Of course I should have a brush for this, but I don't. This stuff does harden pretty quickly, so I like to be able to use my finger a lot instead of a glove because I'm kind of doing it frantically. Hi, Morrissey.
Was that foot?
See that? Isn't that cool?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now you'll see this is awful looking. If you know anything about fiberglass, just look away because I just don't care. So that's gonna be hard enough that we're gonna hope that this hardens properly. Anyways, we caked that sucker on there. So we're gonna wait for that to dry, and then we'll flip it over and start doing Bondo on the other side. As you can tell by his fit, it's a little cold out, so I'm also gonna use a heat gun to speed up this cure time of this resin. I don't think people realize how terrible my impatience is, and I hate waiting for things to dry, but I'm trying to be smart about this one. Okay, honestly, I laid this on real thick. This is hideous, but I needed it to be super strong because I cut a lot of the sports and I didn't fill that part. Sorry, Steve. I know you're a little shamed, but it's gonna be put back together now. Now to flip it over and see what the other side looks like. So I also put tape here. We're gonna see how much has bled through. Hopefully not a lot. Oh, perfect, okay. So it's got a little bit of a high point. It looks a lot more aggressive in the camera, but yeah, it's not too bad. I'm pretty happy with that. Resin is just like a super intense super glue that turns it into almost like a plastic consistency. So we'll do the heat gun on this again too. Look at those ants. All right, so now that that is mostly dry, I taped these off and we're gonna build these arc places that wrap around for more support, because I'm hoping to just leave it completely and have the plate basically dangling outward of it. And there you see it, it's right there, it says recycle, so we're gonna use this again for more resin building. The hardener dried slower than I like it to, so I think I'm gonna do a little bit more hardener on this one. All right, so that shape is pretty much built. You can see it's kind of like almost, I guess translucent, but we're not really worried about that. That's just for strength. And it might get cut off eventually anyways. So I basically dumped hardener inside of that resin, and it's only been a few minutes and it's already pretty much dry. Probably give this a little bit longer, and then we'll flip over to the Bondo side and start doing some Bondo work. Now the goal here isn't to start getting past the gel coat onto the fiberglass fibers. We just wanna get rid of that ridge that's kind of created after putting in the other piece. So you can see there's still like a texture here a little bit, but for the most part, that 120 is really grounded down. So we'll lay on the Bondo, decently thick right now, and then start sanding back down. Probably went a little bit deeper than I wanted to on this, but now we're gonna do some body filler Bondo, and just so you can kind of get this smooth. Doesn't need to really be perfect, but I think it's gonna look a lot better. It's gonna fill in that space more, so. With this, we got a whole dollop of Bondo there. I'm gonna do probably like a half-inch line of hardener, and then I have this old card we're gonna use to lather it on. Kind of impossible to Bondo and film at the same time, so this is almost dry. I'm gonna hit this really high spots with a 320 and then go to a 600. I don't know, we gave it probably a good 20-30 minutes to dry, so we're gonna start cutting into that with that sandpaper. And you can see I fucked up and caked it on real heavy there, but that's okay because we just wanna taper it down into that section that we kind of glued in. I use a little bit more intense grit because there are some really, really high points. This you might be able to see again, but I'm hoping that's just the Bondo coming through. It's a little lumpy through there, but it's kind of what we're gonna get because it wasn't perfectly smooth. And this part's gonna be covered up mostly. So now we're gonna go to more like a 600. And like all these are high points, but I'm gonna run down with some primer. I mean, there's like physically feel the high spots, but we're gonna do some like black primer and see what it looks like. All right, so got it all cleaned up. Now we're gonna run through with some of this Montana. Just gonna act as it's a really thick paint and it's kind of cuttable, so. Looks like I never even cut it. Huh. I'm actually kind of humored how well that worked for just being a quick job. Now we're gonna throw it back on there. I wanna expand this corner, but I'm a little too nervous to do that, so we might just run it. I don't know. As for now, this probably wraps this one up, but hope y'all enjoyed the quick one about how to reattach fiberglass to shit that you got way too excited and cut way too much of. So previously, this thing was going all the way out to here, and now I put that thing back like a really obnoxious puzzle piece. So I guess from here the next step is we're gonna go take this over to Jake in the next week or so and hopefully get him to spray it so it matches this hoe. Thanks for watching. I have more cool stuff on the way this week, so